So, the year 2023 is going to be brutal in FGO. A lot of amazing servants are coming out, some game-changing ones too, so I hope you're prepared. How's it going, everyone? This is Kay, and I'll break down the top 5 new SSR servants you must pull in 2023. Keep in mind, if a servant doesn't make the list, that does not mean they aren't good and don't deserve to be summoned. Not much of a top 5 list if I start dropping 7 or 8 names, right? So, I'll break down these top servants, reason why they're good, their typical roles within a team, and why you should summon them. I'm sure many of you knew I was going to recommend Muramasa. He's the first SSR servant for the new year, and wow, is he going to be an amazing one. He is one of the best arts sabers in the game, who non-surprisingly works very well with Castoria. Strong in both CQs and farming, he's Emiya Shiro, not really, but Shiro fans will be happy, no doubt about that. Talks like an old man and has one of the best looking NPs in FGO. What more can I say? So why is he good? First skill has a 50% rainbow buff, basically increasing all his attacks aside from extra. On top of that, 15 stars and star absorption, making him a crit servant. Now, skill is amazing, but has a long downtime of 4 turns, so not the most consistent. You'll normally use this on wave 3 for farming, and depending on CQs, you'll typically use this turn 1 to break the bar early and start the cooldown process. But like I mentioned, it's not the most consistent skill, but it's great. Second skill reinforces his crit roll with crit damage buffs and star gen. Don't expect him to generate a lot of stars, but with the skill, a decent amount can be created, like 20 stars or so with the right brave chain. Pierce invincibility is amazing for obvious reasons, and an additional crit boost to enemies with evade or invincible makes him a hard-hitting crit DPS, but that's more of a nice extra effect. Reason being is because you can't control when the enemies will use evade. Sometimes bosses will trigger it after a bar is broken, but then you can't control how many stars you'll generate for that turn. Even if you do have the stars, you can't control his command cards, so there's just too many RNG factors, so mainly you'll use this second skill for the piercing effect, or when you know he can crit hard through normal means. Third skill is just, beautiful. Simply beautiful, and the reason why is because it helps Muramasa become an insane arts looper. 50% NP battery helps with 3-turn farming, and is the reason why you can safely give him Black Grail for CE equipment, but that's not all. For 3 whole turns, he will gain 10% off of his normal attacks, extra included. So with a Brave Chain, he is gaining 40% NP, and that's not including gains through normal means such as attacking with arts and quicks or crits. He can literally charge back to 100% with this skill, and it's on a 3-turn downtime. Moving to his passive, it's also good with crits and arts buff along with a 20% damage against kings. Now for his Noble Phantasm, it's yet another amazing ability. AoE arts with NP and arts buff before damage, lasting 3 turns, so he gets stronger the more he loops, which he can easily do. It also has a AoE enemy offensive buff removal, which is very helpful for CQs, and he ignores defense buffs. Combined with his Pierce skill, there's not much in the way that can lessen Muramasa's NP damage, aside from debuffs placed on him. Now, with all this praising, I don't want you to think he's like a broken servant. He isn't perfect, which is why he's the lowest out of the 5 recommended SSRs. If you are looking for the best general 3-turn arts farmer, Muramasa should not be your main priority. There are maybe 4, even 5 other arts servants that surpasses him in general farming. Damage even with Black Grow at NP1 is not always going to clear 90+ nodes on neutral enemies. Not to mention, if there's an archer class mixed in, then Muramasa can no longer be an option. I'm not saying he can't help you with general farming, only that he's not the best possible choice you have, cause there are others. But Muramasa without doubt is one of the best loopers in the game, especially in CQs, thanks to his arts crit roll and 3rd skill. He is a must pull despite some flaws, but if you are looking for that general arts farmer, well, she's next on the list. When it comes to the golden standard of Art's 3-turn farming, you have two servants, Space Ishtar, who funny enough has a rerun banner after Muramasa, so rip Saint Quartz, but the second servant many players consider Space Ishtar's equal, at least comparable to her, is Summer Kama. She's a fellow Arts Avenger who, again to no one's surprise, works with Castoria. First skill buffs her arts, which you'll use turn 1, also grants her evasion for 2 hits for 3 turns, so it's very helpful with survivability. Her second skill gives a 3-turn NP damage buff, which again is incredible for arts looping, since more damage, the better, especially overkill. Now, depending on whether or not you can clear waves 1 and 2 without this skill, or the NP damage buff specifically, you could save the ability for wave 3 in order to utilize the charm effect, but if not, using this skill turn 1 to increase damage is not wrong either. Third skill is her 50% NP battery, which gives you safe margins to use Black Grail if you have it, but the skill also is amazing for additional damage, especially for CQs. Through her normal attacks, she can inflict a debuff that stacks to increase her damage. More stacks with normal attacks from Kama, the more damage. It's a great mod that can increase her damage in single target situations. Typically, you won't really need this for farming unless you're pushing for more damage, but like I said, affecting a single enemy and stacking the debuff is great. She has a lot of passive abilities, but the most notable one would be the 3.8 NP charge every single turn. Kama's Noble Phantasm is an art AoE that debuffs defense after damage, which is sad since before damage would be more amazing, but hey, they gotta balance servants, right? So the reason why I said to save her second skill to charm enemies on wave 3 is because she can increase damage against, well, charmed enemies. When relying on debuffs, there's always resistance factored into it, but if you are able to successfully charm enemies, her damage output will be incredible, surpassing Space Ishtar's damage by a decent margin. Now, like Space Ishtar, I'd recommend getting Kama at NP2 to safely clear 90+ nodes or high HP enemies. The question now is, should you pull for Kama or Space Ishtar, since both will have rate ups in 2023? Kama with a successful charm will out-damage Space Ishtar like I mentioned before, and of course she has the stacking debuff making her slightly better in CQ or single target scenarios. Kama also focuses more on debuffs like defense down and charm, which won't always trigger, while Ishtar is more so focused on buffing, like her ability to boost allies' attack damage by 30%. Ishtar can also change her command cards, making her more flexible for different teams to the point where she's an option for 3-turn farming for both arts and busters once a certain broken buster fox lady with her sniper rifle comes out. Both has their own pros and cons. Both are equally worth getting, but I'm a Marine fan, so you know where my loyalty lies, but Kama will be one of the best arts farmers you'll get. Definitely worth summoning, especially if you don't have Ishtar.
飛びなさい、彼方の空へ。お前はたとえ残骸であろうとも。
Melusine is a very unique servant in which her Ascension stage affects her abilities. For her Noble Phantasm, using Ascension 1 or 2 means she'll have a Arts single target NP, which increases NP gains, gain 10 stars, and inflict a debuff which adds an additional 1k damage to enemies for 5 turns. This makes her synergize well with Arts supporters like Castoria for CQ situations. Now her third Ascension will change her NP to an AoE buster that will pierce invincibility, burn enemies, and buff her buster performance for 3 turns, meaning the more you loop her NP, the stronger she'll be. Having the option to change into a buster AoE opens a lot more options and synergy, specifically with a certain fox lady with a sniper rifle who I previously mentioned, who is also definitely not on this list, okay? Now, 3-turn farming with Tamamovich and Melusine is a bit different. Instead of the usual K-Scope or Black Grail, she'll need a max limit broken Cosmos, which provides split HP and attack stats. Issue is that you'll typically want full attack stats for CEs for more damage, but not only that, you are required to use a plug suit for a third servant to charge some extra NP gauge, making her not the most effective farmer. Basically, there's just too many steps. Now, she becomes an absolute monster of an attacker when combining Vich and a certain ferryman who is absolutely 100% not on this SSR list. When combining Vich and Oberon, you can then use Black Grail on Melusine. Yes, plug suit is still required, but damn is she going to wreck enemies. But let's talk about her abilities. Skill 1 is incredible, thanks to all the buffs she receives, specifically the attack boost and 30% battery. Of course, the survivability buffs are also great. Being on a 6-turn cooldown means with double Vich, the skill will be available again on wave 3. Skill 2 primarily focuses on crit, since it pretty much gives her stars and increased absorption. Most importantly, it's on a 5-turn cooldown, so a very consistent skill, and being an Arts Buster servant who can change her NP types means more team options if you want to use her as a crit DPS. Her final skill is the best ability for Melusine, as there are 2 different effects depending on her ascension. Stage 1 and 2 will change her into her 3rd Buster form. This is permanent, so decide carefully on when you want to activate this. Most importantly, it charges her NP gauge by 100%, so a full NP charge for instant access. Now, if she's already at stage 3, then the skill will just buff her NP damage, which is also pretty good. Both forms will grant her invincibility. The skill is on a 5-turn cooldown, by the way. Combined with double Vich, you're going to use this ability twice. Once to transform, second for additional damage. You'll want to always start in her 1st or 2nd ascension because the 100% battery is just too damn good. Melusine isn't perfect though. If you're using her strictly for arts, then her 3rd skill is more or less dead. She is also a high investment character because you're going to have to use 3 5-star servants to maximize her utmost potential. Herself, Oberon, and Vich, along with a support Vich and a Black Grail. Safe to say, that is far from being free-to-play friendly. Without Oberon, then you'll need a max limit Broken Cosmos. Again, that's not the most effective way to farm. Regardless, she has great survivability, good skills with low cooldowns, can utilize 2 different playstyles, and is very self-sufficient. Try to get her at least at NP2, and again, you'll need Vich and Oberon. So if you have all these bank-breaking servants, Melusine will become godly for CQs and will easily clear high-level nodes. A quick honorable mention, Morgan is amazing. Like I said, 2023 is stacked with godly servants, and she's one of them. She's one of the best servants to use with double Vich for 3-turn farming, better than Arjuna Altar for farming. Damage-wise though, Arjuna still takes the lead. Her NP is amazing, she has phenomenal skills that offer support to allies, and is overall one of the best berserkers in the game. There's many comparisons between her and Arjuna Altar. Quickly breaking it down, Arjuna, like I said, deals more damage, but Morgan is a team player with better utility. She's not perfect, which is why Morgan is an honorable mention instead of being on the list. Despite being able to 3-turn farm, her NP damage at NP1, it's not the best when facing high-level nodes. Just keep in mind, there are a lot of videos and players who say this servant is godly and can deal over 1 million damage, but usually they are at NP5. There is a difference between NP1 and NP2, and that's already significant already. Imagine a comparison with NP1 to NP5. But I'm not saying she's bad. Again, Morgan is amazing. If you can get her at NP2, that'll be best. Another issue you may experience is her survivability despite having guts. Morgan is, after all, a berserker, so she can be pretty fragile, so support is absolutely required. If, for example, you don't want Muramasa, Kama, or Melusine, then Morgan would be an excellent alternate servant to have. Not to mention, using her with Merlin and Castoria means you'll never die in battle, so take that into consideration. Yes, to absolutely no one's surprise, Oberon is the 2nd most recommended servant. He is a pretender class servant, basically the opposite of alter egos, in which they are strong against knights, but cavalry has resistance. Also, they are strong against alter egos and weak against foreigners. You'll use Oberon as a final wave supporter because of his 3rd skill. So typically you'll just use Plug Suit with him along with a different support engine like Vich, even Castoria. He's pretty universal. He is the only servant that can charge an ally's NP gauge up to 70%, and that in itself is quite amazing. Breaking down his skills, he can charge NP damage for 3 turns and charge the party's NP gauge by 20%. Simple, yet amazing, as it prioritizes NP, not to mention, it's on a 5-turn cooldown, so 2-turn downtime for the NP damage buff. His second skill will charge a servant's NP by 50%. Like I mentioned, he can charge 70% for someone when combining the first two skills. Unfortunately, the skill will reduce the target's NP gauge by 20% a turn after, so you really have to plan ahead when using Oberon with arts and quick servants, since NP refunds play a huge role in looping for those engines. Busters, on the other hand, is not really affected because you're working off of skills to charge NP instead, since Busters don't offer NP refunds, and additional 20 stars are also provided, which goes well with Buster Crit Servants. Oberon's third skill is one of the most amazing yet depressing skill because of all the demerits. This skill is why Oberon is highly sought after. Well, that and the 70% NP charge, but the damage boost this provides is what will help you clear 90 plus nodes with ease. A 50% Buster buff is already amazing, but his NP damage multiplier is, simply put, godly. The skill doesn't offer a direct NP buff per se, but it increases the effectiveness of all NP damage boosts on the servant, which Oberon can provide with one thanks to his first skill at max level. That original 30% NP buff is now 60%. Now imagine if you have other NP damage boosts on someone. This means you can further multiply the buffs of servants who has their own NP damage boost, or other support servants who can offer it. So imagine Space Ishtar, who has two separate 20% NP damage buffs. The effectiveness of all of it will double for one turn with Oberon. That's simply amazing, and if you add Oberon's effect and any other NP damage up, that's a lot of damage. But if that hasn't sold you on how broken the skill is, how about this? A max limit broken Black Grail will now give you 160% NP damage boost, since Black Grail's effectiveness also applies. That's one of many reasons why I recommended Melusine, who has her own NP damage buff. At NP level 2 with Vich and Oberon equipping a max limit broken Black Grail, you'll have no problem clearing the toughest farming nodes. Yes, it'll put you into financial debt, but is it worth it? Absolutely. I'm just joking. Don't go to debt over a waifu husbando game, okay? Now, of course, this skill needs to be balanced and is meant to be your final ultimate attack, because afterwards, your selected servant who received this buff will be useless. All buffs are removed, and they are basically stunned the whole game. Cannot be prevented, cannot be switched out, cannot be sacrificed, so no Chengong. They are basically useless. Good news though is that they will have taunt for 3 turns, so not entirely useless. In fact, it's actually very helpful. An important thing to keep in mind about his NP multiplier is that you can't stack it. Can you imagine how broken it would be to use 2 Oberons? Insane. His passives are pretty good, just be aware of the anti-support Merlin effect. His Noble Phantasm is a Buster AoE that removes offensive buffs along with putting them to sleep. Also deals more damage to lawful traits and can hit pretty hard at NP2. He does grant enemies invincibility, so you have to plan on when using his NP. So again, Oberon is a must-have. He will be someone who can increase your final NP damage significantly on Wave 3 nodes, which normally has high HP enemies. He's best used with Busters, but since he offers a universal 70% NP charge and the NP multiplier, he can be used within all teams. Again, he's meant to be used as a final ultimate attack that must end the fight. If not, the demerits will kick in. Finally, the most anticipated servant of 2023, one of the most broken servants in FGO, and the #1 SSR you must summon is...
儚きはつこの世はなべて散りあった我が王貴様を捕らえたぞ諸行無常調査必須
Avenger Ushi is considered one of the most broken servants you can have in FGO. She doesn't have one katana, she has 2 freaking katanas. And as a Musashi lover, who doesn't love waifus with katanas, let alone 2? I'm just messing around. Of course, we all know who the #1 servant of 2023 is. It's no surprise. Now, there has been some arguments on whether you should prioritize Vich or Oberon if you can only choose one. It's up to you, but think of it this way. Oberon will grant you the ability to deal insane amounts of NP damage to enemies, which is why he's highly preferred for 90+ nodes. Vich, on the other hand, supports an entire game engine, that being Buster, as you know. So again, it's up to you on which you think is most important. For her first skill, it'll charge 50% NP and reduce skill cooldown by 2. This is what will allow Buster servants like Space Ishtar, Melusine, Morgan, and a lot of other Buster servants to 3-turn loop. NP charging and reducing other servants' NP battery skills or buffs by 4 turns, since of course you'll be using double Vich teams. That is what again will allow you to 3-turn loop. The skill does have a long cooldown though. Her second skill will increase the target's damage against man attributes and humans. Very effective since a lot of enemies fall into these categories. Not only that, 20 stars will be dropped, helping Buster crit servants. Also, when attacking with a servant with this buff, they'll gain 10% NP charge when attacking with Buster cards. It's similar to Muramasa's skill, but only for Busters, which, funny enough, when using Vich with him, he can actually charge 20% per Buster hit. A little fun team up you can use. Third skill is her Buster buff, but it's not just any Buster buff, it's a Buster crit buff that all Buster crit damage dealers can appreciate, because not only does it offer a 50% buff to Buster card, it also offers a crit damage buff for Busters and increases star absorption for Buster cards, so those Buster crits can consistently hit hard. So yeah, Buster crit buffs for the win. It's a very strong skill, one you would typically activate turn 1, and when used, your servants are going to hit really hard from both NPs or crits. Just imagine Arjuna Alter with double Tamamo. Her passives are also really good since it increases a lot of damage performance. Her Noble Phantasm is a Buster AoE that increases damage while reducing enemies' NP bar. Additionally, it will charge everyone's NP gauge, so it's very useful. Now, if you've been out of the FGO loop or just don't understand why Tamamo Vich is good, she helped Buster the same way Scotty and Castoria helped Quick and Arts. Does that mean the other two engines are no longer effective? Absolutely not. Each has their own mechanics. With Vich, Buster can destroy CQ bosses, and with the right build, you can 3-turn farm. At the very least, if you don't care about the whole Buster engine thing, you can still use her as a 50% NP charger, which can still be very helpful, especially for new players who may not have a waiver, let alone any of the top tier limited servants. So, Tamamo Vich and Oberon are the best new servants you can get for 2023, and of course, the other 3 are must-haves, but it's a little bit more debatable depending on what you want or have. But keep in mind, Castoria will be back along with Scotty. Basically, 2023 will have literally 4 game-changing servants. I honestly hope you're all ready for this hell we're going to walk through, but just know this, you won't be alone. We can all wallow in our sorrows together. That's what's important, us helping each other with the mountain levels of salt we're going to experience. We're in this together. Unless you have EX luck, in which case, screw you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for future FGO videos. Don't forget to comment down below to let me know who are your top 3 servants you must have for 2023. Again, comment down below to let me know. Of course, mines are Muramasa, Oberon, and Tamamo Vich. I really want Ushi, which is why I kind of recommended her as a joke in the video, but I don't know, I really do want her, but we'll see. Regardless, best of luck on your summons. Till next time, everyone.